the blue part.
1987, an LA rock band called Guns N' Roses exploded onto the world stage with their debut album, Appetite for Destruction. The band's frontman, Axl Rose, quickly became one of the most enigmatic performers in modern music.
There is something about him on stage that combines the little boy lost with the cavalier in a way that all the great frontmen could.
He was out there to prove something about himself, and he didn't care what happened, who got in the way, but he knew that if you're going to make it on stage, that you got to give it your all.
He was a rebel, and he spoke the truth.
From superstardom, arrests and riots to becoming a virtual recluse, this is the story of how a young man from a small town in Indiana became a rock icon. For the boy who would become Axl Rose, life began as William Bruce Bailey on the 6th of February 1962. He was born in the small Indiana town of Lafayette, where he would spend the next 20 years of his life.
Lafayette's a conservative, down-home kind of town. At the time we were children, it was a small town with a park and an ice cream parlor and kids riding their bikes and playing hide and seek in the alleys. Also, there's two different towns separated by the Wabash River. On the west side of town, the West Lafayette would be the university, and on the east side of town would be mostly the factories, Subaru, Wabash, National.
It was on this side of town, on 24th Street, that the young Bill Bailey lived with his severe religious family and his abusive stepfather, Stephen. He was soon enrolled in Oakland Elementary, a nearby school.
Oakland Elementary School was a very old school. It's where I attended for 6 years with Bill. I remember Bill walking around on the playground singing a lot, and I remember him being in choir. I remember him Bill having a very low voice, and not thinking that he was very remarkable or anything outstanding as far as having a singing voice. That was wonderful.
Bill soon graduated to Sunnyside Middle School and then on to Jefferson High School, where he first befriended Jeffrey Isabel, who would later become known as Izzy Stradlin. At 17, Bill discovered that his real father's name was William Rose. It was a discovery that began a complicated relationship between the singer and his pseudonym. Soon after, he dropped out of high school and finally left Lafayette for California in the winter of 1982. At the age of 20, the man who would become Axl Rose arrived in Hollywood, California. Like so many other young musicians, Bill had been drawn to LA by the promise of stardom.
I think what drew him to LA was to get out of Indiana. And I think other than that, the same thing that drew him here and attracted him to LA is the same thing that attracts all of the artists to LA. And that continues until today. This is where your dreams can happen. This is where you can go from dream to reality.
In the 80s, Hollywood was the promised land. They saw that all their heroes were making it out of Los Angeles. Van Halen comes to mind, and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers was one of the bands that I followed and thought, God, LA's got to be the place, you know. But you know, you always saw stuff on television, and it was always either Los Angeles or New York, and in my mind it was better to starve in the sunshine than in the snow.
Moving into an apartment on Whitley Avenue, the young frontman soon gravitated towards the burgeoning rock scene centered around several clubs on Sunset Strip.
As far as musical trends, there were two of them. One was punk rock, was very popular at the time, and also what people now call hair metal, sort of glam rock. You had those bands playing. In those days, people went to clubs to hang out. It was cool to go to a club. They didn't just go necessarily to see a specific band like they do now. The clubs had lots and lots of crowds there, no matter who was playing.
It's like Disneyland, you know. There was lots of young musicians. There was lots of image at the time. It was a big thing, image, sort of more so than the music. People were exploring different, you know, glam and heavy metal and different rock looks, and it was a big thing.
Everybody was so into how they looked and being just helping each other. This thing called flyering. You could walk down this Sunset Strip any night and you feel these bands. These bands would flyer the walls, the people, everything.
The Strip was like a sea of bands with flyers and promoting, and bands were coming here from all over the country, all over the world really, to like showcase.
Desperate to become part of this scene, Axl quickly reunited with old school friend Izzy Stradlin, and it wasn't long before the pair had their first group underway.
Well, I originally met Izzy first. Izzy was introduced to me by Tracy Guns, who was a friend of mine from high school, Fairfax High School. And Tracy and I were hanging out, and he said, I've got this guy that I met. You know, his name's Izzy. His name's Jeff. I think it was Jeff back then. I don't remember even calling him Izzy until like much farther down the line. But his name's Jeff, and he's a guitar player, and he's got a great look. Didn't even say if he could play. You know, just he's got a great look. So I said, well, cool. I'd like to meet him. So one night at the Rainbow, Tracy introduced me to Izzy. And I was talking to Izzy, and I said, you know, I'm looking to play in a band. He goes, well, I'm looking to form a band. And I said, okay, let's do it. And that's when Izzy said, you know, I got this friend that just came in from Indiana. And Izzy had been in town for, I don't know, like a year maybe, most part of a year. And he had known Axl, he had known Bill from Indiana. And he said, I've got this guy. So we went to where Bill's house was. Bill was living in an apartment with his girlfriend over on Whitley in Hollywood. It's just like in the, not the dirtiest bit, but this sort of, it's kind of, you know, it's not really the newest part of Hollywood. And